Okay, thank you. It is Tuesday, February 8th. This is the Senate Reapportionment Committee. And we were just being told what we're going to get in hard copies. Nick has mailed out to us a map that has all the counties color-coded, just the county lines with all the towns and their populations. So that will come to us. It doesn't have anything to do with the current districts. Then he's going to send us one that has the current districts on it. And then he's going to send us the minority map from the LAB. And so we will be getting all of those. We will probably not have them by tomorrow morning's meeting, but we might have them by Friday's meeting. And so that we can, instead of trying to put every single thing on the same map, I think that was getting a little complicated to try to figure out which were county lines, which were current district lines with the populations. So that is that where we are right now. Good. And thank you, Nick, for doing that. And
Madam Chair,
yes,
we have a joint hearing with the House Appropriations at 6 o'clock, so I may have to jump off a little early because we got a ton of witnesses punching in. And
yeah. Okay. Yeah, I understand. The public hearings on Zoom are really, really hard. I've been involved in 2 of them now around pensions, and they're just, anyway, you don't want to do it unless you really have to. And I think we'll have a hard stop at 6 anyway, because people have to go, they have family obligations. So, okay, what would be your pleasure right now that Nick should put up on? Do you want to see the map that he just sent us today, that he just put together with all the counties and all the towns with their population?
Sure. It's beautiful.
Okay, let's look at that. And then we have Jeannie and Tom Little with us again, and we thank you for continuing to come. And so let's just take a look at that map, and then let's jump again to the minority map. If it are you all okay with that, committee? Okay, all right.
Okay, folks, so it's gonna look a little different. Oh, sorry, first of all, yeah, so Nick Atherton, mapping specialist with the Office of Legislative Counsel. Thank you for saying that it looks nice, but you're obviously not seeing the same version that we are looking at the moment. This is zooming in a little bit to clarify it a little bit. And let me remove this that particular legend that was in the way. So this map, as the chair mentioned, shows all of the Vermont's municipalities, as well as its counties color-coded. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, also, I'm sorry, population, respective population for those counties and those municipalities. What we're looking at here is a live version of that. I've created a printout that is on PDF and has been distributed to the members of the committee via the website and is out in the mail as well. I'll stop there for questions or comments.
Anybody have any questions about this? This is really great to see the way the counties really are. Bennington is a funny looking county, isn't it? Tall and skinny.
And Jeanette, how do we know if all the census numbers are accurate?
Well, because they came from the census.
You mean I'm here from the government to help you?
Yeah. I mean, these are the numbers that were given to us. I mean, Putney is listed at 2,617. They may have missed 5 people, or we don't know, but these are the numbers that we will go with. Because we can't start second guessing the census.
But in Somerset, we could go and actually, check. That would be an easy door to door.
Madam,
Yeah, yes, Chris.
I'm remembering this from 10 years ago that we were frustrated because a big housing development sort of got finished between the census closing and the process. And if I remember, it was kind of, as you've gently said, and I'm asking you, I guess, if you would say it more strongly, these are the numbers we can use, and that is it. Is that right? I mean, we don't have the option to argue these numbers, basically.
I don't think we do. I think that these are the numbers that were given to us. And, in the meantime, Putney may have put up a housing project that houses now 150 people, but there's no way of going back, and that could have been happening in many towns, or housing may have been closed down. I mean, some housing may have been abandoned. So these are the numbers.
Well,
And I'm not quarreling with that. I just wanted clarity.
Yeah. Tom, did you have a comment on that?
The Tom Little, and it works both ways. So likewise,
Yeah.
if there was a big fire or the building was demolished a month after the census had been done, those people get counted. The law in Vermont does, I don't think this has ever happened and probably never will, but it does contemplate that the state of Vermont could do its own census if it felt that the US Census was not working anymore or was unreliable. It contemplates that Vermont could do a census, but the apportionment process has to use either the US Census or some census done by the state.
I don't think we want to commit the state to
No.
starting a census
No.
project right now. So I think that thank you, Chris. I think these are the numbers.
But that's why we have deviations that we can use to twist, make our districts somewhat right.
Right, but we will use these numbers. So if we wanted to move Rockingham to Windsor County, the
Yeah.
number we would be using would be 3,832.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, any more questions? That was good, Chris, to make it clear that is, we're not gonna monkey around with the numbers. So any questions, comments about this map?
No, it's very helpful. Thank you, Nick.
Good.
It is. Thank you. And I still say, Bobby, you should get some of those people from Chittenden County to move over to the Northeast Kingdom. They'd love it.
And Bobby,
we
you're in
have
Troy, right?
We have enough already.
Oh,
You don't.
Bobby, aren't you in Troy?
Yes.
That's why.
So
yeah.
Nick, could you move the map down so that we could, or I guess it's down, so that we could see the top half of the state? Wow. That is really bizarre the way that happens.
Certainly, Madam Chair. Yeah, it's just retaining every label. And I just want to just note, when folks are, I'm happy to move the map in any direction, people doing a lot of different stuff with it. But one thing that would help me out quite a bit is if folks could make an effort to use cardinal directions when directing where they want the map pointed. So north, south, east, west, that sort of thing.
Got it.
Oh,
That may be harder than left and right.
Allison, see Troy, it looks just like Vermont, almost.
It does, it's true.
You know what looks more like Vermont, Bobby, is Minnesota. It looks almost exactly like Vermont.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Nick, can I ask you to make it even bigger? I'm scrolling back to Rutland County, which is south, and I don't see any population for Rutland Town.
Certainly. Let's investigate Rutland Town. Rutland Town appears to have a population of 3,924 individuals.
Okay.
So what's the, just while we're on that, what's the difference between the Rutland that's below it that says it has 15,807?
That's the
That's Rut-
city.
That's a city.
Oh, that's the, okay, got it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't edit these labels. They're determined by the geographic data that was inputted into this map set.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. There's another map on our link that has every town and every population, but it doesn't break it into districts or
Right.
counties.
Right.
And that's useful too.
Mhm. Okay, do we want to spend more time on this map or should we jump to the minority map and keep looking at that?
Yeah,
Yes.
but thanks, this is really helpful.
Yeah.
This is great.
Okay, I'm going to go off video for a quick second here, or end of the screen share. Okay, let's pull the minority.
And Andy, I tried to do a kind of a timeline moving backwards from April 1st. And I figured that, where did I put it now? We had to have have to be done with ours by the same, as much as possible by crossover date. Which would be March 11th, I think. So that we can,
After town meeting this year?
huh?
It's always the week right after town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll only be back a week. Yeah.
Yeah, and we should, but I think we need to have it pretty much settled by then, so that if there are any little tweaks or anything that we need to do, or things that we need to adjust. So that's the what I think we should aim for. Does that make sense to anybody else except me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're-
Sometimes things make sense to me that don't make sense to anybody else, so.
So
Just
what's our,
wanted-
what's your date you're aiming for is March 11th?
Yes,
Were you planning on meeting at all during that week we're off?
I think that what we should do is we should see where we are when we leave on February 26th or whatever that date is. And then,
25th, yeah.
and then we can see if we need to meet over the break. And if we need to meet over the break, we can probably adjust our schedule so that we don't have to do it at 6 at night and 8 in the morning, and might have a bigger block of time once or twice. But I don't think we need to schedule that now. I think that we can wait until when we get toward the 26th, and then we can all come up with some times if we feel we need to meet. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is the minority map.
Correct. This is the LAB's minority map as proposed, simply just re-illustrated for clarity of use.
Yep. So we had listed a bunch of questions that we had up to this point. We had Stratford, Thetford, Pittsfield, Londonderry, Wilmington, Charlotte. Had those listed as towns of concern. We never did talk about whether there was ever any appetite to change the number of mean, I had suggested at one point that we might want to look at Orange 2, Windsor 2, whatever, but we can talk about that later. So,
What do you mean, Madam Chair?
well, I was wondering if Orange and Windsor both have deviations, I believe, that were askew, and what would happen if you made Orange a 2-member district and Windsor a 2-member district? I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if it's has any support or anything, but I just was thinking that we don't need to tie ourselves into the same number of that we have in the districts right now.
Right.
That's all I was thinking.
Well, Orange never had 2.
No, I know they didn't, but that,
And in Caledonia's always had 2. And I think they're down to 1.
I realize that, but my question was, is there any appetite to to look at that kind of thing? I mean, we're looking at making potential big changes in the Northeast and the Northwest. Is there any appetite to look at making any of those changes anywhere else? I guess that's my basic question.
I think, Madam Chair, we have to be open to everything, but I think at this moment, this is our first time to look sort of in depth at the North. It's our second time looking, and I think we should do that first before we start.
Oh, no. I wasn't suggesting that we should. I was just, because if everybody
be open,
if everybody said, no, there's no way we should ever look at that, then I would just drop it.
well, I mean, some of us,
Okay.
yeah, I think we have to remain open, and I think that's a hard charge for all of us, but I think we need to at least be open-minded initially.
Okay, so let's, I think that we were kind of at that tier right across there with Washington, Caledonia, parts of Chittenden. Isn't that where we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not as familiar with this part of the state as other people are, so.
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Andy.
I had a similar thinking of that you just said with Washington and Wyndham or Orange and Wyndham or Orange and Windsor with Washington and some of the surrounding districts that are over, with Washington being under and being a 3-member district. I've just started to try to look at that. Like, is there a way that you could make it a 2-member district and make another one that's either Orange or Caledonia that's a 1-member district now in the minority map, but a 2-member district? So it's something that, to answer your questions, it's worth looking at, and what Senator Clarkson said, anywhere, whether it be Orange, Windsor, or Washington, somewhere else. If there's an easy way, if they're not easy, but if there's a way to do it that makes sense, I'm open to it. But kind of like we talked a lot last time, been trying to figure it out on the fly right now. I'm gonna go work with Nick at some point and see if I can come back and show what it might look like. And maybe the apportionment board tried that already. I don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted us to see if we were all open to kind of stretching ourselves to look at not necessarily keeping the same number of seats in the districts. So,
Madam Chair, legislators, we are open to being stretched.
well, okay. So how do we want to approach this? I would love to, Chris, I don't know. I would love to just look at Chittenden County, how that has, how Jeannie looked at Chittenden County, because that is even more complicated because it currently has 6 and now it can't have more than 3. So how it gets divided up could be 2 3s, 3 2s, 6 1s. I mean.
Well, and yes, I think we should look at it, Madam Chair. And I will just say I've played with it now quite a bit since Friday, and The problem is, one of the tricks is that it's not just take 6 and divide it differently. It's sort of 6.5, and it's
Yeah.
confusing if you add Colchester. And so I haven't found the perfect solution, not far from it. So it will be hard, and it will have to, there's no elegant solution that I could see that you could imagine presenting to colleagues and everyone go, oh yeah, that's good. So,
Well,
So-
Chris, did you move any towns like to Lamoille or anything like that, or did you stay within your county boundaries?
well, I certainly try. That is just simply not, because, yeah. So let's look at what they've done and digest that a little bit. But you'll
So-
see that it is disruptive.
So before we start looking at that a little more intensely, there was a huge article in the Times this morning about redistricting, and I think it was today or maybe it was yesterday, about how both Democrats and Republicans have done redistricting in a very partisan way. And I'm just, I don't know the populations of many of these towns. And I think our goal should be to make the towns, the districts reasonable and not look at it from a partisan
Oh,
point
yeah.
of view. One of the things that they talked about was that when you do that, you lose the confidence of the voters out there. And I think that's very, very true. And so anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, and that's probably more relevant in the House districts, but I think we need to also have that as a basic premise.
Could I just add, Madam Chair, that
Sure.
I don't see us, I'm not even sure any of us could. I don't think I could draw a map that landed, 24 Democrats and only 6
Mhm.
Republicans. But so I completely agree that
Yeah.
my approach will be community based.
Mhm.
Right.
And trying to, I want people to feel an obvious connection and not have to, follow this closely to figure out who their person is. What I will say though is incumbency is hard when we're making changes. Understanding where our colleagues live and what that means, it is not going to be easy. And it's not just that we have a personal connection to these people, it's that they have to vote on it. And that I don't know how that all goes down, and I don't know what the history has been, but I would suspect more than the partisan breakdown, it's that interpersonal, which is frankly some of what makes the Senate work well. So I look forward to guidance on that.
Well, I think that I didn't see, well, there was some of that in the last one. And I'm sure there will be issues this time. And I know that in the House, that was more of an issue because of the redistricting in a couple places put people running against each other, incumbents, and
That's not good.
but I know it's not good, but we have, so that is something we have to take into account, but we can't, it has to make sense. I mean, we can't protect, I don't even know where people live, so except for me. I do know where I
Well,
live.
is
And Bobby.
Tom? is
Yeah, I know where
Tom-
Bobby lives.
Is Tom still with us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, a question for Tom. is, I don't know this map that's on the screen right now. Dick Mazza lives in Colchester. And if you left him in his present district and went up as far as North Hero, he would have a perfect district, I believe. And yet you guys somehow took him out and made a district down with him in Milton, I believe, according to the map.
Here we, let's see if, yes, in part, you're always trying to solve more than one population problem at the same time and coordinate it across more than one district. And if you, I would defer to my colleague from the board, Jean Albert, about where exactly those proposed lines are drawn, Senator Starr. The Grand Isle area in this map becomes a way to solve a problem in Franklin County by taking it away from.
What is that problem?
Well, it's a population problem. You've got a bulge in Franklin County and in Chittenden County, and there's more than one way to skin this cat, for sure. This is one way of doing it, but when you start tinkering with this, you create some more problems. And Madam Chair, if the committee has the interest, I think Jean could explain how she ended up with this particular combination of Milton and Colchester.
Yep, that would be fine. Jean, do you want to weigh in?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. It's Jeannie Albert from Legislative Apportionment Board. And Tom's right. Just listening to several comments, also for Senator Pearson, I definitely tried a number of different configurations in this region. Just to clarify, the district that includes Colchester actually does also include all of Grand Isle County.
Nick, could you go south a little bit so we can see the,
So,
North, I think.
that district that currently,
thanks.
where Colchester currently is, the district that's in this map has all of Grand Isle County, Colchester, Milton, and those two towns from Franklin. And so it does include Grand Isle. I just wanted to make sure to mention that, although obviously it's quite different than it is now.
Does that make a 3-member district?
It's a 2-member. It's a 2-member. And I was going to add also, just kind of following up on a few other comments made earlier, just about kind of what I was thinking about as I formed the districts, which, it is a challenge in this region. I might have mentioned this last week as well. We did hear testimony from some, even though it was mostly focused on the House districts, we heard testimony. There was a strong preference to have the towns that form the Mount Mansfield Unified School District be in the same Senate district.
Well,
and
Jean, if I may,
yeah,
I'm only adding in my head. I have not a calculator, but if you put your Colchester at 17.5, Milton at 10.7, 5-1 over in Fairfax and Georgia, and add all those up, you're going to come out way over a 2-member district.
Well, the population total, I think, is given there in the label. Is that right, Nick? For this district?
Yeah, it's 5.8% over only.
Correct. So just to explain the labels, we have on top, we have the name of the district. Second line is the number of members. Third line is the deviation from the ideal number of citizens or residents per district. And the bottom line is the gross population of the district as it is drawn.
Yeah. So it is maybe surprising, but the numbers do come out to be larger than a 2-member, but not grossly over, I guess I would say.
2,000, roughly.
Yeah, 2 or 3,000, right? So, but just a kind of piece of information for the committee, as you're thinking about what groupings in this Chittenden region might make sense, I ended up deciding to try my best to keep those the towns that requested to be in the same Senate district because of their relationship in their school district. That was one of the things I kept in mind, and that included the Mount Mansfield district I just mentioned, and also the Essex Westford district. And it did turn out, although this was not the only thing I tried, that if you move a little north with the map, so that we can see that whole Chittenden East district. Maybe I should have meant south. Sorry. I'm thinking of you moving the map north, so it's kind of the opposite, I guess. That district does include those Mount Mansfield towns. It includes Essex, Westford, the Chittenden-E is what I'm talking about now. And then the only town that additional to what I just described is Heinsberg. That is to say that's not part of the school districts that I just mentioned. So that was one of the things I had in mind. When I got closer into Burlington, South Burlington, Williston, and Winooski, my goal there was just to try to keep districts together, regions together that seem to have some form of community connection. And one of the ways I thought about that was, well, in the Burlington district, for example, I wanted to keep Winooski near to the part of Burlington that it's near to, for example, in the same Senate district. And it is in this configuration. Senator Pearson's right. Thinking about Colchester made it much more complicated, and I couldn't think of any way to bring in Colchester without dividing it. So I ended up not doing that. And then the only other thing I'll just say quickly is there is that odd looking shaped district that kind of has a little boot sticking down, you might call it, to the west of Williston. And the reason for that is that because this area is being newly divided into Senate districts rather than being one big Senate district, the only other principle I thought of was, well, I also had developed House districts for this region, and I tried my best to keep those House districts together in a Senate district. But that's somewhat arbitrary. And if you didn't like the look of that boot coming down, which I'm not sure I like actually, you could divide it any way you like to make it look better than that. But the reason you see that odd shaped thing sticking down is because that is a House district by itself, at least in my plan.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
could I ask Jeannie a
Chris.
question?
yes, please.
Jeannie, I actually have said to several residents of what you're calling, I guess, Chittenden East here, that they did an excellent job. All of those towns were organized. They sent us not just a letter, but a letter with some research of the process saying we're a unified school district. Please make us a Senate seat. We've figured out the math. It was really good. So I applaud them. I'd love us to figure out a way to honor that. But in your map here, you've you've divided a long-standing unified school district. And so I guess I'm wondering how, I
Yeah.
get it. I've now played with this enough to know that this is a process of irritating as few people as possible. But I mean, how would you say that we would work with the school district that sent us a great letter and divide up a school district that's longstanding? And I'd love to understand how we would justify that, or if, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it does seem tricky to me.
And which school district is that, Chris?
CVU. So that's Shelburne, Charlotte, Heinsberg, and Williston. And I know you gotta, I mean, they're now in this map in 3 different districts at the minimum. So, and I know the Williston is, well, it's hard to do the Chittenden East without some of those big towns, but anyway, just curious.
As you can imagine, I'm not necessarily going to have an especially satisfying answer beyond things you've already said, which is, it will be hard to be able to achieve all the very worthwhile criteria that you may consider. One way, though, you might be able to do that. I mean, I guess what I would say is you'll have a greater chance of satisfying certain criteria if you're willing to have a 3-member district. Because the more you have smaller districts, the more you're going to divide. It's just a geography problem. So, I mean, another, I did consider other ways of not having Essex and Westford, and instead using the towns you just mentioned from CVU, but then you start, I don't remember the numbers anymore, but you start to get into bigger districts potentially, or you have to grab a part of something else. So my guess is it will come down to balancing in an imperfect way the issues you're describing. But I do think going into, and I did actually make a map that was that had 2 3-member districts, just to sort of start with something that was the biggest you could have, to see what that just might look like. And I might suggest doing that so that you at least get a sense of the possibilities, even if you think you might not end up with that in the end.
Madam Chair, I would think that would be interesting to at least see.
Mhm.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
there's also the issue that as you look at doing the northern part of the state last, we sort of become the leftovers. And as we look at the leftovers, I'm concerned about the map that we're looking, particularly in terms of what it does to Franklin County. You take 2 critical towns to Franklin County, most particularly Georgia.
Could you, Nick, could you move south so we can see Franklin? Thank you.
Can we just stop and have Nick help us understand? Does he want us to say south if we really are driving north, or because people keep saying that differently, and I would have thought we would agree on north, south, east, and west.
Probably the direction of the arrow is the key.
Thank you for the question. Yes, the direction that you'd like to see more of would be the easiest one for me to hear last in the request. So if you'd like me to see, let's take this as an example. If you'd like to see Chittenden County, it'd be easier if you could tell me move the map south, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
But in terms of the drawing here, Franklin County becomes, I think, the geographical boundaries and the affinity of communities gets lost here to a great extent. You take Georgia, for example, which is right next to St. Albans. It has St. Albans zip code. It has St. Albans telephone prefix numbers, not to mention the historical closeness of the 2 communities. On the other hand, the map adds in Eden and Belvedere, which have no connection to Franklin County and in fact are separated from it by mountains. So those are concerns. Now I realize that there are other ways to doing it, and hopefully as we discuss this over the next several days, we can look at some alternative maps that perhaps maintain the geographic integrity and the community integrity on the one hand, but still meet our need to have an appropriate distribution, but desirably one that links together folks who have a common affinity.
I'd agree with that.
May I just add one other comment?
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't mean, I do really appreciate Senator Brock's comment, and now this is so wonderful for me, because when I finished, I thought I didn't get to solve various problems that I wanted to solve, and now I get another bite at that apple. And I realized earlier, I'm not saying, whether this makes sense for other reasons, but Senator Perchlik was mentioning, some changes to at least be looking at for your own understanding. And so I quickly did a calculation where I added the population, just based on population, Washington and Lamoille, right? Because one's too big and one's too small.
Mhm.
And when you add them together and divide by 4, you get almost exactly a perfect 4-member district, basically. So in other words, now you may decide that that's not worth it to say divide up. So in other words, expand Lamoille by joining parts of Washington to it to make it 2-member. And then the rest of Washington could be another 2-member, just to throw it out there. But doing that would mean you don't have to move Eden and Belvedere, which I've heard is not ideal. And that would mean you'd still need to take something from Franklin, but it might be much smaller amount. It would be, of course, a smaller amount. So I'm just throwing out, not because but just because of my experience trying to think about groupings. I hadn't considered changes to Washington County or to Lamoille, so that the choice I just threw out there hadn't occurred to me. You have an opportunity to consider more of those choices.
And there are other choices also. There are almost infinite choices, and those choices include looking at Essex Orleans as, again, a 2-member district, again, by expansion. One of the things in terms of adding Georgia and Fairfax, for example, to Franklin County, if the loss of the easternmost counties are towns such as Richford and Montgomery, which historically have been part of the Essex Orleans Senate district, is another thing that can have an effect. And we see that the numbers still do appear, at least in some of the projections that we've done, to meet the goals, the limits to which we can have deviation. I think there's a lot more work to be done, is what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
So,
are we ready to vote?
Jeanette, is Chris gonna keep working on Chittenden County, trying to figure that out? Because if we could get Chittenden County figured out, so we could put Colchester back in with the islands, what Randy just said makes a whole lot of sense. And I know you said we can't move west anymore, but up in our neck of the woods. But if we're going to maintain a stretch of 100 and some odd miles district, we need to have 2 senators there to do it.
I'm glad to keep working, but I will definitely keep working, obviously. But any guidance, I mean, this is what I mean. It is, even if you include Colchester, or maybe just by including Colchester, Chittenden County is pretty close to 7 seats.
Yeah.
And so that gets very difficult. And I found myself in the drafting that I was working on. I did find myself looking at Georgia, looking at Fairfax, trying to figure out Charlotte. There is no straightforward boom, draw these lines, everybody would agree that it makes sense. So, I guess maybe it would make sense to try to bring in a few options for people to look at. And I mean, I would say it's a little bit tricky because we don't have clear principles that we've all agreed on. And I'm not thinking that we would easily do that, but so I guess I just would keep trying and see what makes some sense to me and bring it in for everybody to look at.
Well,
Yeah,
I
go ahead,
pulled
Bob.
around with the top part of the state and, got some numbers twisted around, but it still boils back down to Chittenden County, getting straightened around. And then we can move up to Franklin County and then across to the Northeast Kingdom.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Allison.
So Chris, first of all, Jeannie, I think I would love to see how you played with Chittenden having 2 and 3 person districts. I think that would be interesting for us and shake up our thinking a little bit. I think that would be useful. And second, I think we did agree to the standards, which were county-based, substantial equality, avoiding splitting towns, respect for community connections and geography, and creating reasonably shaped districts. I think we did agree to those. And for me, those are kind of the principles, equity being, of course, as much as possible, our guiding principle.
Sure, but those are impossible in this case. So you run into it's a great comment, Sarah Clarkson, and so that is fair to say that was what I tried to do, and then you quickly go, oh my God, well, what do I do about this? And
Right.
So the question is, what's next after you tried all that? Where do you slip? And as we just heard from Jeannie, she said, well, over here we're going to try to keep the school district unified, but that won't apply over here. And so it's fascinating.
It's an extraordinary puzzle. I mean, Will Shorts, who we really need here is Will Shorts.
No, he does not do jigsaw puzzles.
Oh, he doesn't. He does all sorts of puzzles. Anyway,
No, I don't think
somebody.
jigsaw.
We need a puzzler. But I guess the reason to look at 2 and 3 members, and I don't know, Chris, if you did that, and I don't know who your buddy is as you're looking at these, but I would think that 2 or 3 members might help solve some of our thornier issues in and around Chittenden County. And Jeannie, I guess my last question is, I'm puzzled by Grand Isle, the numbers under the county names. Is Grand Isle the number of actual people in Grand Isle or the number in that district? Because obviously with the number in that district, it's too small for 2 people. But Franklin's seems to be the number of the people in the district. So I'm puzzled by the numbers up here.
I think that the numbers in the black are the numbers in the district, and the numbers with the red are the numbers in the county.
But there are no numbers in the black for
yes, if you go down, there is, because it's part of a different district. It isn't just Grand Isle.
South.
2,000.
I'm sorry, I don't see population. Oh, I see on that map, not on the, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the minority map on my iPad. Got it. Sorry.
So I just have a question that might be, you might throw things at me, but
it's a good thing they can't hit you.
It seems to me that whole area that we're talking about, Franklin, Grand Isle, and Chittenden, has grown to the extent that, as Chris pointed out, Chittenden alone really is a seven members.
They do have
So
some.
if you were to adjust around something, I mean, is Franklin really a 3-member district? If you seriously looked at, like, Alburg, my understanding is that Alburg has more of a relationship to Franklin County than to Grand Isle because of the bridge that's there. And Georgia and Fairfax certainly have more of a connection to Franklin than to Chittenden district. So that's just a question that I'm asking is Franklin really, because of the growth, a 3-member district?
No,
I don't know. I mean,
no, it isn't. Randy would have those numbers, but it's a little bit like Chittenden. They're like 6.5 or something
Yeah.
like that. Well, Franklin's like 2.4 or 2.5, something like that. And
Well,
that's
every day
why-
it gets bigger.
Pardon?
Every day it gets bigger.
I know, but we're not looking at beyond the amount they had in 2020.
but if you added Alberg in,
It's about
And
2,100, I think, in Alberg, if I remember correctly.
2106.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we need to be as creative as we can here, and we shouldn't lock ourselves into saying,
So, Madam Chair, if you
Yeah.
just simply add the 2 counties, Grand Isle and Franklin counties,
Yes. Yeah.
straight up together,
Yes.
it's 57,200. So that is not enough for 3, way
Right.
over 2.
yeah,
Way over
Yeah.
2.
But it's good thinking, and I mean, I do think, I'm glad you're asking the question, because it's a
No,
challenge to keep creatively trying new solutions.
However, it is 3 if they do one land grab. I mean, Grand Isle and Franklin could be an easy 3-person district if they just add one key town.
Well, if you add Milton, for example, which is 10,000, almost 11,000, that would make the difference.
Yeah.
You consider that the Islands House District right now, both of the 2 House members who serve and cover Grand Isle are actually residents of West Milton.
Yeah.
Right, because that district is South Hero, Milton, part of Milton, and
Yeah, it's West Milton and all of Grand Isle are the house is a 2-member House district.
Yeah, that is a pretty perfect 3-seater.
Yeah.
It certainly would send shockwaves into Orleans, Essex.
Well, yeah, because we use Richford and Montgomery, and if we had Berkshire, Richford, and Montgomery in with us, and Grand Isle at North Hero and Alberg in with Franklin County, and left it as it is, everybody would be fine.
I don't think so.
Well, it'd be pretty close.
It'd be close on the one hand. On the other hand, Berkshire is likewise an integral part of Franklin County and has been. And from a school district standpoint, that would be just a question as far as Berkshire is concerned. Now, I understand that Montgomery and Richford, though, are towns that have been part of the Essex-Orleans Senate District historically.
Yeah, for 20 or 30 years.
oh, for
Can
2
we-
or 3 cycles.
Can we
I've
drive
always-
east a little
I've
bit?
always represented them. And I think the Senate before represented them.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's something just to think about, is looking at Jeannie's, the one she discarded, but might be worth looking at, and then looking at Franklin Grand Isle as I think that's interesting.
I'd be happy to find it. I tried to save all my earlier drafts for this purpose. So I'll try to find that. And the other thing, just wanted to follow up with a question that Senator Pearson had, which is, I think if I added the right towns, that Mount Mansfield plus CVU makes a very nice 2-member district.
Okay,
Sorry.
good to know.
Which are the
So
2?
It's the towns that are in the Mount Mansfield district and the towns that are in Champlain Valley. That's, yeah.
What are the towns in the Mount Mansfield district?
That's Underhill, Jericho, Richmond, Bolton, and Huntington.
Gills Gore.
And Buell's.
Yeah, and plus plus it would be Williston, well, Charlotte, did you add Charlotte?
I did. So then,
Okay,
then
so
you
now
have to,
the
Yeah.
ripple.
so,
Oh, God.
but it's, you guys, you got more people, so you'll figure it out.
And Heinsberg is part of that CVU.
Yes,
Seaview is what? Charlotte, Shelburne?
Heinsberg, Williston,
Yeah.
St. George.
And what about St.
probably.
George?
St. George, yes.
Yep. I
Yeah.
included St. George. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that screws up Addison, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe, then do we look at moving Brandon, if we move Brandon back into Addison, which is where it was 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think that would be
Then-
hard.
Then that screws up
That
Rutland.
screws up Rutland.
Yep.
And Brandon's very Rutland. I mean, that's really a Rutland thing.
One aside thought, as I've been playing with the maps over the last few days, is looking at Washington, which theoretically is a good district because it matches the boundaries of Washington County. But on the one hand, it's 7% short
Yeah,
in terms of its totals. If Stowe were added to Washington County, it would be almost right on the mark in terms of percentages. In terms of
I
the
did
deviation.
ask that question last time and
I was gonna
I
say.
think I got shot down, but
Yeah.
it is something.
Maybe it needs another sign of life to at least look at.
Or
The
maybe,
numbers work.
It's the Washington number right on the money for 3 members.
Exactly.
or looking at the Washington Lamoille as a 4-person and figuring out how to divide it 2 and 2.
Yeah.
Possibly.
So what's the name of the other school district, Chris, that you were talking about, the Underhill Jericho one?
It's MMU,
Oh,
I think, or
Mount Anthony,
Mount
No, Mount
Mansfield.
Mansfield.
Mount Mansfield.
not Mansfield.
Mount Anthony's in Bennington.
That's right. Mount Anthony. And it's,
Well, where are we here, committee? I have no idea what time it is. It smells
6:01.
food from
6
my
o'clock.
kitchen. It's 6 o'clock.
oh,
Yep.
yeah,
It smells like food from my kitchen.
yeah, it's 6:01.
So I-
Maybe, Madam Chair, next time when we look at, we keep doing this work over to the east and then maybe look at Jeannie's 3-person idea, just, just to
Mhm.
shake us up and have us thinking.
Yep. And I don't know how any of you feel about the possibility of at some point meeting in person. It just seems to me that this might be easier to do if we were actually meeting in person, but it's just something to think about. We don't have to make any decisions tonight, but it is something to think about.
It might take, this is Jeannie, it might take, I think ideally, I would send make sure that Nick has access to the Maptitude file so he can show you a good copy of what I created.
Okay,
So I might not be ready for that for tomorrow, but maybe for Friday, if that's
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
I mean, I don't want to presume, maybe Nick, maybe that's too fast for Nick also, but I was just going to suggest trying to get that to him.
I do have access to all of the LAB's work via Maptitude. What would be the ideal display of information if you're going to be examining this plan further? What would help people to see?
I guess the map where Jeannie did 3-member Chittenden 3-member districts.
Okay.
And
sounds
I,
good.
I'll get that information to you, Nick, where it is. I myself need to remember which one it is. So that's why I just didn't want to overpromise that you'd be able to look at it tomorrow.
If I know what it's titled, then I can get it all queued up. That's all I need.
I'll do my best.
Thanks, Jeannie. I really appreciate it.
Okay, so everybody, thank you.
Thank you, Madam